Yeah, I kind of want to, be a moderate voice, but also end the crybaby epidemic. Like we need to do a lot better because, if you're sitting there and you're counting all of the ways that you're victimized, then
Yes.
it's going to stop you from being able to achieve things in your own life. I want everybody to be empowered. I want everybody to be a warrior, and I want everybody to succeed in their life. And we
Right.
can't do that if we're crying about microaggressions all the time that don't really matter. If you don't pass, work hard on passing, and then someday you'll pass, baby. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Hey everybody, I caught myself a good one today. This is really going to be so tremendously educational as well as really refreshing. I think for not only myself, but I think for a lot of what people think about the trans community. And I think that this person, I value them coming to me and wanting to have the conversation because most people in the community don't. We're very one-sided, it feels like. So anyway, with that, I just want to thank everybody for watching and really supporting my channel. And I watch it grow. It's crazy. And, I just can't get these kind of guests without you all supporting me and my voice out there. So thanks so much for subscribing, liking the bell thing, all those kind of crazy stuff. So with that, I'm going to introduce Nalea. And Nalea is somebody who reached out to me from the internet, and she's a trans influencer, and she's out there doing the work too. We have completely opposite opinions. That's why I love having her on today. And I think we're going to get into a very awesome conversation. But before that, I'm going to have her introduce herself, and then we'll do a little background with her, and then we'll move forward. Hi, Nalia. Thanks for joining me.
Hello, I'm so honored to be here. Buck, thank you for having me. The first thing I wanted to say to you as soon as I came in here is, hi, Daddy. So
Oh, wait, I
I
have to
want,
change hats. My
please,
daddy
please.
hat.
I want you to know that I love you. I have
Oh,
known of you for a very long time. I think you are a trailblazer, and I think it's very important for all of us to respect our elders. I've only been at this for 2 years, and you've been doing this for a very long time, and you've been extremely good at representing yourself and us. And it doesn't matter what differences of opinion we have. I think it's important for us to pay homage to the people that came before us, and
oh,
you have. Yeah.
oh, that's so sweet. That means a lot to me. Thank you, because I get raked over the coals in this community, but that does mean a lot to me. And the work I've done is for us, and that's what
Yeah.
people seem to forget is that I did it for us, not for me most necessarily. But and now things are changing, different community, different things, and that's okay. So I want to know a little bit about you first before we move into a discussion, and tell me a little bit about where you come from and your transition and all that.
Yeah, so I'm a 32-year-old transgender woman
Hmm.
from Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
I was raised Muslim and I grew up in a predominantly Republican area. I think Ohio in general is a swing state, but there's a lot of red and there's some blue. And so from a very young age, I was able to relate to multiple different kinds of people without compromising myself. And as soon as I graduated, I decided to move to Arizona.
Hmm.
Same sort of situation. Arizona has mostly been red. It is sometimes blue. It's blue in the cities. And so, again, I'm in a situation where I'm around conservatives, I'm around liberals, and I have to represent what I actually believe. And I started blowing up on TikTok at around this time last year because there was a lot of anti-trans laws that were being proposed. I felt like I should say something about them, and one of
Mhm.
my videos went viral, and it's been a riot ever since.
Wow, that's congratulations on that, friend.
Thank you.
That's a big deal. I know that. TikTok. I can't. You're younger than me, a lot younger than me. So I get that cranky old man shit. I'm like, I can't deal with this stuff. I got a family to take care of and shit.
Yeah.
But you got the young spirit, and you can be in there. So good for you, friend. I think that's very important. So you grew up in Ohio, and you grew up Muslim.
Yeah.
And so, are you still Muslim today? Do you practice? Are you
I would say
just
I'm like culturally
culture?
Muslim, similar to how a lot of Jewish
Sure,
people are culturally
sure.
Jewish.
That's right, 100%. And so,
Yeah.
was it difficult for you as a Muslim transitioning?
Totally. Like I don't speak to most of my family. They don't believe in the entire situation. It's kind
Uh,
of backwards in some ways because in where I'm from in Bangladesh and countries surrounding it, India and Pakistan, they actually recognize transgender people as a
Yeah,
third gender.
that's
And
right.
so there's some sort of acknowledgement, but my family and the community is like, oh my God, not one of ours turning out this way.
Well, it's usually that anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Like when I was a
Yeah.
gay woman, my parents were like, no,
Yeah.
we can't have a gay butch daughter, please.
Yeah.
I think that doesn't really necessarily translate to just any space. I think all people who have an LGBTQ son or daughter, it's difficult for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And not just necessarily what religion you are, but I think it's just hard for people for them to have a person from our community. And it's sad because it really shouldn't be that way. I think once they see people like me and you, that's why it's very important to me to be not a representation, but to be out there so that people can see I live a beautiful, it seems like you live a beautiful life. We live
Yeah.
great. And
Yeah.
that's what, because I think today we're seeing some crazy stuff that is making people get scared that they don't want their kids to be that, if that makes sense.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why representation is important, whatever that means to you. Representation is important when it comes to these types of situations because back in the day, people would think you're gay. Oh my God, you're going to get AIDS and you're going to die and you're just, you're hanging out in the toilet having sex. That's what actually
Yeah.
people thought. It's so,
Yeah.
remember, I'm 61, so I come from a very different, I think,
You were giving
generation.
me like 44,
I'm 60.
45 at most. Do you date people half your age?
Of course, my wife is 20 years younger than me.
Oh, get it.
Right on. So with that, did you have a problem when you were a child? Did you struggle at all or anything with your gender?
I think we all did. I mean, I knew since I was very young that I
Yeah.
was destined to be a woman. I just didn't know
Mm.
how it was going to happen. I remember being like
Wow.
5 or 6 years old, being like, okay, when I'm going to turn into a girl now, when is that going to happen? And just
Oh
waiting for
wow.
it to happen.
Yeah.
As I got older, much like you, I was like,
Mhm.
okay, this gay stuff, I guess, isn't that bad. So I,
Mhm.
I did that for a few years, but it
Mhm.
always bubbles up, if you
Right.
suppress it.
Oh no, it totally does. So you did live as a gay male for a while there, and that didn't work clearly.
Yeah, I lived that way. I loved it. I mean, my parents got a double whammy because I didn't come out to them for
Oh.
until I was like 26, 27. And then by the time I'm
Oh.
30, I'm like, actually, I'm a woman now. So it was
Oh
like
wow.
real bad. Yeah.
I mean, but you look amazing, actually. You look fantastic. Nobody would ever know that you were trans. They wouldn't. No.
Thank
And
you. That's very kind. I started my journey with FFS. So I kind of went backwards because I'm
happens.
like, I'm not about to be clocked in these streets, please.
Well, I mean, I would consider you a transsexual. I know that's probably not how you
Yeah.
identify, but I would most definitely say that. So did you, during your transition, so how did you start your transition? Did you just go to a doctor or did you just decide you needed to do it?
I always knew I was able to do it. I was making good money in the financial services. My job was very stable, and
Right.
it was just a matter of like jumping off the cliff.
Hmm.
I didn't want to be, in my twink body, but
Hmm.
with budding nipples, basically. So I didn't
Yeah.
want to go through like, the therapy at first. I did do therapy, but I didn't
Mhm.
want to medically transition starting with hormones because that just has a lot of effects on your body that I don't think look good. And so that's what most people should do for the sake of insurance. For
Sure.
me, I'm also very impulsive. And so I just kind of calculated like if I go overseas and get my FFS done first, the
Mhm.
rest of my transition will be comfortable because I won't be as visibly trans. And I was right about that.
Wow, that's actually interesting. I don't think I hear very many people talk about that way, but it's a smart way to do it actually, because
Yeah.
yeah, you're not getting that, because it's hard for us people out there to know that, especially during that period when you're transitioning, right? Going from male to female or female to male. There's a weird, I can speak for it was a weird kind of morphing that I looked weird.
Yeah.
Things were happening. Like it was just really a lot, and people say things to you. I think I'll be honest. I think it happens more for male to female than female to male.
1,000%. I think
Yeah.
that female to male, you guys grow into your bones and stuff like that, we have to
That's
shave things
right.
off, and so it's a little difficult.
100% different. I will always admit that is much easier on some level. Easier is word, I guess. Really, I don't know if that word really works, but it's just different. It's like I grew up
Yeah,
mustache and beard, cut my tits off. Dude, I work out at the gym.
yeah,
I know what you have to do. I'm very
yeah.
aware of that. I've been around trans women for 30, 40 years, right? So I'm very aware of the journey. And I think, again, why you sit here today, we can get into that and why it's a different experience for you than for
Yeah.
me, and why we have different opinions, because I see it from a different vantage point than you, right?
Okay.
So I think that. So I think, I mean, if you have anything else about your background, I just kind of want to know where you come from, and, how you got to where you are today and being a trans. So how long ago did you transition?
I was it was 2 years ago where I got my FFS.
Wow, you're just
Yeah.
killing it. You're killing it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Good for you. Well,
I'll have a nice big rack by the end of this year too.
Honestly, if I could have gotten the bottom surgery, I would have had a nice big one too. Right on, but then we can choose it.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? If you can do it, you should do it. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
That's the one great thing about being us. We get to choose how we want to look and
Yeah.
be. Um, so let's just get into some conversation here. And I think let's see. I saw a video. How we met, how you and I met, was I responded to something you had posted on your page. I didn't even know you, right? So I
Yeah.
randomly just take stuff and respond to it. And I think it was about homosexuality and transphobia. Was it not?
It
Is that,
was, yeah.
oh gosh, my old brain is working. Wow. And so I think I responded to you in the sense I pushed back on you a little bit, that said that, well, there's also homophobia, because you said the homosexual community has transphobia in it, and I said, well, yeah, and the transgender community has homophobia in it, I think is what I said, and I think we
Yeah.
need to discuss that too. So let's talk about that a little bit. What was it that you think is transphobia coming out of the homosexual community?
I think that there's like a big wave of, gay marriage was legalized across the country in 2015. I think there was an enormous wave of gay people who performed a little bit of a grift where they
Mm,
started to really align themselves with conservative operatives, which I
mm,
understand if you have some conservative values, which I do as well.
mhm,
You want to go along and be with your community. But the
mhm,
problem is, a lot of them, in my opinion, started punching down upon
mhm,
transgender people. Some of it we deserve, some of it we don't deserve.
mhm.
And, you know, forgetting that in the big picture, ultimately, when the conservative, Bible thumpers are done with us, they're going to go right back to them.
Yeah, right. I mean, I hear you. I have a lot of friends who have become more conservative in their, and again, I wonder to myself sometimes, and I used to be like, when I saw what was it called? It's called the what is it called? The something House Republicans. They're the gay
Log
Republic
cabin.
log cabin Republicans.
Yeah.
And back in the day, they were here too, and I was like, what? How can you be a conservative and be gay? Like I completely. But as you get older, your values do change. I'll be honest with you, and so, your morals, things can change. You just see things differently. I think lived experience makes you have different opinions and different ways to be. I would say that even my own values have become a bit more conservative as I got older,
Mine as
married,
well.
have a kid. Right, I'm a total family guy. Like I just have a different way than I was 20 years ago. So with that being said, I do think there are more older gay people who have become much more conservative in their thought process. And I think they also see things that they didn't see prior to what's happening today in the trans community. And I think on some level, that they are seeing things that are scaring them and making them upset, because I feel like they feel as if people somehow they're not, all the rights that they did fight for, which I was a part of that, are somehow being diluted in the new trans space. Now, I'm not going to necessarily agree that that's happening, but I do think some things are happening with our community that is scaring me, because we shouldn't be fighting so much. We shouldn't. Do you know that's what they want from us, Nalea? You
Yeah.
know that,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah,
want to
for sure.
divide me and you. They want me and you to
Yeah.
hate each other. 100%. So that's why I also say I think from the trans community I see some homophobia coming there, calling gay men AIDS-ridden stuff like that. I'm like, what? You
Yeah,
can't
not great.
say that to a gay man. Like, uh, I fought around the time I was around the AIDS epidemic, my friend. I lost all my gay male friends, so I have a
Wow.
lot. Yeah, it was horrifying. I'll tell you, no, I will never let that go from my brain. So,
Wow.
I think that the fight was different then, and then today there's this idea that the trans people are taking the rights from the gay people and the gay people are taking the right, but I don't necessarily think that that's actually true. I think we're seeing things from different vantage points, and we're not having what me and you are having right here, a conversation and trying to understand the other side. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, and I don't want it to come off like I think that's a general thing about gay people. I think I was just making a video
Yeah,
responding to some things that I saw, but
yeah,
trans people are not with impunity for everything that they do, and I think you and I agree to that. And
that's right.
somebody needs to check some of the people in our community. It might as well be one of our premier elders. I do it as well. There's a lot of transgender people that do it. I think that with those gay people that are more on the conservative side, a lot of whom I respect,
Yeah.
you have to make sure you're putting your energy in the appropriate place. Like you can have those conservative values, but
That's
just
right.
understand that what's happening with the transgender world right now is a manufactured social outrage that people are utilizing to win an election. So don't
Yeah.
jump
Ooh.
so hard on the bandwagon. Be strategic.
Thank you for saying that. 100%. We are being used as a political pawn. 100, whatever side you're on, whatever you believe about trans, we, as trans, as LGBTQI, we are being used.
Yeah.
I mean, I see it, and I can't believe that our community on some level doesn't see it. And that's
Yeah.
dangerous. It's just like everything else people say to me all the time, you're a bootlicker. I don't side with anybody. I do not
Yeah.
side with anybody but myself and my own sense of what I believe. You know me, I'm very outspoken. I don't care what you
Yeah.
think about me. I'm entitled to say what I need to say, as you are, right? But that's the problem I think that's happening in our community. You and I get silenced. Some people in the community might not like you, some might not like me. So they want to silence us because we're not on. And I know I watch you. You don't necessarily side with all the narrative of the community as I do.
Oh, no, disagree
No,
with a lot. Yeah.
why it's important. So me and you don't align 100%, but I'm pretty sure we have agreement on other things. But that being said, both of us should be able to say the things we need to say without feeling like we're going against our community.
Yeah, that's missing. And I think part of the reason why it's happening like that, I learned about this through observing. I really like watching RuPaul's Drag Race. And I noticed that there's a lot of hate that happens on the Queen's pages after they, go on that show or whatever. And what I thought was happening was that, maybe our community as a whole is extremely toxic, and maybe some of it is. I think a lot of people that are putting up the hate comments are anonymous children. And so I think that a lot of those same type of people are anonymous going online and cyberbullying. And a lot of us are not realizing that the people who are co-opting the conversations about being transgender are people without a lot of life experience. And that's a problem.
You just hit it. I think we're agreeing on a lot here. It's kind of weird.
I think so too.
so, so that being said, see what conversation does, people. You have
Yeah.
this idea about somebody. People have all kinds of ideas about me, you know that. And then after they
Yeah.
sit with me at the table, they're like, "You're not anything like that." I'm like, because you cannot listen to what other people say about other people. You have to have a conversation with that person. Like, actually listen to that person and give them some grace to explain themselves before you make judgments on people. And I think you hit it on the head. We have too many trans young people who are just coming on this space with no experience like you and I have, and then just
Yeah.
speaking over us and saying things that do not in any way, shape, or form represent me as a transsexual person.
Or the average trans person. I feel like all of us most of the trans people I know in real life are very reasonable. They're humble. They are kind, all of that stuff. I think when you get on the internet, you see a different beast. And I think a lot of those people are people who are not socially skilled enough to maybe do that in real life. So they do all of the hateful stuff and the weird stuff on the internet.
Oh, no, you hit it right on the head, because now we have TikTok, right? Which is a complete
Yeah.
shit show as far as I'm concerned for young people. And my kid isn't allowed. Please, Dad, let me have. Nope, dude, I'll buy you whatever
No.
you need. You want a PlayStation?
Yeah.
We're not doing TikTok, kiddo. Just so you know. No, because I do think it influences on a not on a positive space, and then
Yeah.
I get attacked on there constantly by 20-year-olds. I'm like, what? I literally was doing this before you were even born. Like, it's okay. It's okay, honestly. No, it's okay not to agree with me. It actually is. But it's not okay to say that I'm transphobic, or that I'm a bigot, or that, I'm ruining the community. It's just not okay to say that to me. I won't tolerate that. Um, so with that, I think the next thing I'd like to discuss actually is trans kids, because I do think you and I
Yeah.
have a complete different. We are in complete different agreement. We are not in agreement on that particular thing. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what you feel about trans kids?
Well, I want to take this from real life example. So I
Okay,
think in the
great.
last year we have seen Dylan Mulvaney and other trans people like her be extremely maligned by by media and social
Yeah.
media. And I think part of the reason is of course how you present yourself, but the other part of the reason is that Dylan was a non-passing transgender woman. She
Yeah.
looks amazing now. You'll notice that the bullying has died down a lot. We don't bully people like Kim Petras or Hunter
Mm,
Schafer or Jazz Jennings because those people were fortunate enough to start their transition early and people don't even notice that they're trans.
mhm.
And so when you take away a child's ability to have that opportunity, then you put them in the same camp as a Dylan Mulvaney. Somebody like me, I've experienced plenty of bullying in my life as well because I've always
Yeah,
been super feminine. So
sure.
when the parent, the doctor, the child, and, various medical authorities say that it's a parent's choice to help their child with that part of their life, I think that's something that should be respected.
Oh, great. And so great. I love what you're saying there. It's very compassionate. It's very empathetic. I get it. We were both kids who dealt with whatever gender stuff was happening to us. Remember, I grew up in the 60s, though.
Yeah.
Totally different, right? I don't consider myself a trans kid. I consider myself a tomboy. I didn't even understand
Mhm.
what any of this meant. Now, that being said, I do agree that it would be amazing if kids could do this, and the problem that I have is my research on it and watching what is happening to the kids who did take these particular, let's call it Lupron, okay, because that's what they're using for puberty blockers right now, Lupron. And the kids and the young people that I have interviewed or had discussions with who have been on this wish they never were put on it, and wish that they had been given the opportunity to sort of go through the puberty and live and then make the choice on their own. So I have to listen to that. It's very important for me how I can make my choice, whether this is good or bad. I think it is a case by case basis. Number one, I think across the board saying trans kids, I don't think that's fair, because I don't think a child who says I'm a boy is necessarily trans. I think that they might be playing. We have to be honest about this. We know kids play with gender. I'm around kids all the time. I'm around 11-year-old
Yeah.
boys. I coach, I have a son. Kids come over to my house and play. And not one 11-year-old boy says they're trans. So I'm like,
Yeah.
this is fascinating to me. But what I want to say is that just in my research alone, I just feel like we're going too fast in doing that to children that might regret it in the long run. And if you notice, you're coming from a different space. Okay. So, what we said earlier, a trans woman would benefit more from this than a trans man. Do you see what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Yeah.
We can easily get rid of all the feminine stuff by taking testosterone and removing our breasts, where a trans woman has to go through a lot of situation to get rid of the mass. So I completely understand why it's being said, because if you notice, more trans women are pro puberty blockers than trans men. More kids that are on puberty blockers, did you know this, happen to be young girls, not
Yeah,
young
I did
boys.
know that, but I've never considered this perspective before, so that's really interesting.
Yeah, so this is why I have an issue with it right now. I feel like we're in a very, very touchy space right now when we start messing with kids. And I'm going to tell you, remember where I come from. So in the 80s, we had a thing called NAMBLA. It's called National Association of Man Boy Love, right? And they tried to connect to the gay community. We all freaked. We were like, get away. We've always been very what's the word I'm looking for? Very much pushing back on kids joining in on us. if you understand what I'm saying. The minute you
Yeah.
bring kids into any situation, everyone's going to freak. So I feel like we've put this trans kid thing too much on a pedestal, and people are looking at us like we're insane touching children. That's what they think,
Yeah.
actually. And
Yeah.
this stuff is not reversible. I don't know if you really understand the damage some of this stuff can do to a young person. In reality, I understand why this would want to be done to a child. Not reality, and I guess in that space. But we have to understand that for me, I just don't think we have enough research to think in the long future. How will this affect a child's health? Right?
I hear you on that. I would say that we got to look at proportion at some
Okay.
point. So
Okay.
I think I have a lot of compassion for people who detransition. It has
Yeah.
to
Thank
suck
you.
at the very
Thank
least. I
you.
mean, I don't ever want to come to that conclusion by myself. So I have compassion. I think they're valid. But I think that's when we want to start looking at statistical data, because for every one detransitioner, there are hundreds of, transgender people who want to transition.
Yeah.
And the leading medical authorities like the National Institute of Health and, pediatric societies, they are all asserting that the puberty blockers are not damaging. They kind of put things on pause.
Yeah.
Now, I'm against, believe it or not, I'm against people having surgery before the age of 18. However, the caveat is it needs to be all children. For every one mastectomy that a transgender female to male child has, there are 17 to 20 girls getting boob jobs. I'm against discrimination. So
Right
we
on.
need to make sure that if we're banning these things, it needs to be banned
That's
for
right.
everybody, not just targeting us. And then finally, I will say, there aren't that many children medically transitioning. I think in 2021, Reuters reported that it was something like 18,000 or something, which is like 300-400 per state. So it's a small amount of people. I don't think the right thing is to ban. I think the right thing is for us to invest in better ways to understand if a child is truly transgender instead of banning everything.
See, we're in alignment right there. Right there,
Yeah.
because I thought you were 100% all about, but no, look, like I said earlier, if this actually could help, but I believe too many of these kids are not trans, and I think a lot of them are being shoved into this space because I know I'm in LA. We have the Children's Hospital here, okay? The LA Children's Hospital was the first place to start pushing the puberty blockers onto kids. We have Dr. Olson here, which I pushed against her, and I know a kid who did start at 5. And I became friends with the family because I really wanted to watch. This kid is fine. He's a female to male, right? He seems to be doing great at 17 now. But the problem I have is the parents made that choice, not the child. And this could possibly be a problem when the child grows up, and maybe because we see this happening with detransitioners, all of a sudden they're like, I'm not really a boy, I'm really a girl, and why did I do this, and how come nobody pushed back on me? This is why I feel like it's sloppy right now. I don't feel we have a solid, structured space and understanding. When you start giving a child medication, they're medicated for life, right? I mean, it's not easy. This is not easy. I've been on this 31 years, Nalea, 31 years. It's not easy. I will always tell you, I wish I was born a man. I do not want to be trans. I wish I was born a man. I don't wish this upon anybody. You and I both know it's a struggle. Daily, it's a struggle. And that's why I'm very open about when I say that. Like, of course, I want a young person to have everything I have. It changed my life. But I also want to make sure that they're making... I really going to tell you that I don't believe it's reversible. I do not believe those puberty blockers are reversible. Some of the damage that is happening. So, for example, I interviewed Brianna. Do you know Brianna Ivy, I think?
I'm not familiar with her.
Oh, she's awesome. Actually, I would love to introduce you to her. But anyway, she was on puberty blockers she's a male to female. Puberty blockers at 12, hormones at 15, and then at 17 she had the vaginal surgery. At 22 the vaginal surgery closed up, total nightmare, has never had sex, never even felt sexual. She said the blockers removed all sexual thoughts from her. She's never even had a feeling of sex. That's the third person on puberty blockers that I spoke to that said that to me. That's sad. That, I'm big on sex, by the way.
Both of us.
I mean, sex is amazing. How can we take that away from a young person? That's part of exploring who you are. And then she actually said, if they would have just left me alone, maybe I'm just supposed to be a gay man. I was like, oh fuck. At 22, she's saying, and now she looks like you. You could
Yeah.
never go back to being a man ever,
Yeah.
ever. You can't. Sorry, but you would be a very feminine. You would get teased, and it would not be good.
Yeah, I see that. I would say that, one person's complications can't be used against the rest of
Sure,
us. So,
sure,
I think
sure,
10% of people in this country regret having kids. I mean, do we
sure.
stop people from having children just because of that?
Yeah,
I understand. I have compassion for
yeah,
detransitioners, and I think you and I are definitely in agreement. There need to be a little bit more medical gatekeeping, but I do not think
yeah.
the people that are proposing laws against us have good intentions towards adults or children.
Well, that's because you and I aren't being able to speak to these people. Okay, that
Yeah,
I'm going to tell you because we do have nuance. I can already tell you that me and you have nuance.
yeah,
The people that keep being asked to the White House to or have an agenda, they are completely have a one-track mind. They think
yeah.
all kids who say they're trans are trans. They think anyone who says they're trans, they're trans. I fully disagree with that. But these are the people who get to talk to the representatives. So then now the conservatives think we're all like trying to trans everybody. That's what they
Yeah.
think.
They do think that, and it's crazy. They definitely do think that.
They do because they're not speaking to people like you and I who are like, nope, actually, I mean, I don't know. I think that's how you feel, right? If just because a kid says they're trans, does that make them trans?
Oh, absolutely not. I think they need to explore those things, and they need to talk to a therapist, and they need to, maybe spend some time socially,
Yeah,
if you want to wear a tutu or a baseball cap, maybe do that and see how that makes you feel. I agree with you. I think that in the trans community, we also need to get rid of the idea that the minute that somebody thinks that there's something that's when the world needs to
yeah.
completely cater to their every whim. I think there's a little bit of entitlement that we have right now as a community that we need to fix, and it'll make some of these conversations a little bit more easier and more credible.
That's right. But me and you get blocked from that. You know that because we're not
Yeah.
the representative that they want to have out there. And the community. So I'll tell you real quick. I used to speak all over the world. I was like doing so really great. And
Wow.
then the community is blocked. Don't bring Buck to speak. I spoke at every university in the United States pretty much. Right. And all over I was, whatever. Then all of a sudden, this new thing came in and don't bring Buck in. He's transphobic. And I got invited to speak at this big event, and these three, I'm not even going to name them, but they're very known trans people who just said, don't bring Buck, he's transphobic. I'm like, it's about elders.
Whoa.
It's literally about elders. And you're going to block my. That's when I'm like, nope, this is a fake community. It's fake.
Yeah.
It's wrong. They won't have people like you and I who can sit at the table and disagree and walk away completely fine. But I don't know why they don't want us to have opposing opinions. Do you?
That hurts my feelings to hear. You could
Yeah.
say a lot more. I've watched a lot of your content. I don't agree with a lot of it. I agree with a lot of it as well.
It's fine.
And there's very few things that you could say to me that I would just completely throw you away for, just because you've done so much for the community. You are an icon in the community. And I think that there's a lot of elder trans people that have opinions that younger people would not like. That does not mean we throw them away. That means we treat them like a community, have the
Thank you.
conversations, agree to disagree, and may the best opinion win. We
That's
still
right.
can, we don't have to work on the same side all the time, but I
Yeah.
don't think there's any necessity to be cruel. And it doesn't work, by the way, for
Yeah.
us to divide it against each other and be mean to each other. Like, it doesn't help anybody act as a team. We need to find the
That's right.
common ground between all of us and try to work with that. And I think that's
That's
a
right.
lost art.
Oh, see, you get it. We are from different generations. It's always been like that. I don't care what community you're in. Go talk to the old Muslims and talk to the new Muslims. I guarantee you, different ways of being for
Yeah.
sure. And it's like with any community, how I do have more conservative values, and I do see things that people in this community might not see because my vantage point is 31 years, right?
Yeah.
It's a different vantage point. It doesn't mean I'm right, doesn't mean I'm wrong. It just means I can say I don't feel comfortable with this. I think we
Yeah.
should reevaluate this and we should have these. But to actually block voices in the community because you don't like what they're saying says to me it's something else is going on here. They don't want to have sort of different opinions, but because they only want the world to see one way of being.
Yeah, I kind of want to, be a moderate voice, but also end the crybaby epidemic. Like, We need to do a lot better because, if you're sitting there and you're counting all of the ways that you're victimized, then
Yes.
it's going to stop you from being able to achieve things in your own life. I want everybody to be empowered. I want everybody to be a warrior, and I want everybody to succeed in their life. And we
Right.
can't do that if we're crying about microaggressions all the time that don't really matter. If you don't pass, work hard on passing, and then someday you'll pass, baby. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
There you go. You heard it right there. This woman puts a lot of work and effort. I know. Don't think I don't know what you put into it. I do. I've been around a long time. I watch all my trans women friends work their asses off. That says something to me. That means you're willing to do the work in order to coexist in the world, right? I
Yeah.
coexist in the world because I want to. I want to pass. Now being passing is considered transphobic. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Isn't that the end goal?
That's the end goal. Yeah, there's insanity, and that sort of thing I feel like comes from a lot of young people that just wanna be, reinforced with who they are. Just
Yeah,
listen, you're
yeah,
in
yeah.
God's eyes, everybody is equal, but that doesn't mean we're gonna have equal outcomes, and we need to be
That's
okay
right.
with that, and we gotta work for the things that we want.
Thank you. Thank you. I swear to God, man, the kids need to hear stuff like this. But here's what's happening. TikTok,
Yeah,
Instagram, insular. They're in a balloon. They're in like a total
yeah,
insular space. And then don't listen to Buck. He doesn't know what he's talking about. They say that
yeah.
so that they won't listen to me or to maybe even you because they don't want them to have their own. That's why it scares me. Now, I'll tell you, it scares me because the kids are very easily influenced. You and I both know that. They're so
Sure.
easily influenced to say, well, you don't need to have dysphoria to be trans. You can just be trans. So when I see these kids, they are struggling. They aren't trans. They're struggling with other stuff like kids do, right? But then they're shoved into this trans space, which makes them even more lost. It makes them even more because they don't fit for reals, but they're trying to fit in that space. And we're doing such a disservice to young people by just handing them the keys to be trans without any, like handing them the keys to the car without giving them driving lessons. That's what we're doing.
I think we could definitely benefit from more education, which is why I think it's crazy that so many people are trying to block knowledge of transgender people on the internet and in
Yes.
schools, and just not
Yeah.
talking about it at all is not going to help. It's not going to
No.
suppress anything.
Yeah.
I think I agree. Most people, I like your usage of the word transsexual. I think you and a
Mhm.
couple of other prominent
Yeah.
transgender people use it.
Yeah.
I used to not like it, but the fact of the matter is there is the people who are on medication have different political interests than people who are not. We're being harmed the most. And a lot of the stuff that's being used to harm us is
Yeah.
coming from people who are not truly trans. Like, for example, I was watching a video on TikTok today of a girl talking about sparkle sparkles pronouns, frog frog pronouns. Have you seen this girl before?
And yeah, I probably have.
She gets shared on all of the anti-trans pages, and I'm like, if you're gonna make fun of us, at least get the trans people right. She is not one of us.
That's the problem. I do
Yeah.
those little reaction because I can't stand it. These people, you know what? I'm going to tell you again. I keep having to tell everybody I've been in this shit for a long time. Those people, there's a lot of, and in no way, shape, or form do I want this to come off as mean or disrespectful in any way, shape, or form. Cross dressers are valid, transvestites
Yep.
are valid. These people are totally valid, but they're not transsexual and they're not transgender. And what I see now is I do see a sort of different type of person coming in that is more of a transvestite, which again, no hate at all. But that's not
Yeah.
transsexual. That's not me. I'm not a crossdresser. I'm not somebody, and I'm not even AGP. Now I know. How do you feel about the AGP thing?
What is AGP again?
Okay, AGP is autogynephilia, and
Oh, got it,
right,
got it, got it.
right, right. So it's
Yep.
a love of self, which is more of a crossdresser and more of
Yeah.
somebody who wants to be a woman for the more fetish size part of it, for more of like I'm getting off on having boobs and it's sexually arousing. Again, no hate. That's completely okay for that, right? I've been in the sex industry for a
A
long
lot of
time and
those.
around dominatrix. I was married to a dominatrix. So a lot of those came
I
to see
remember
her.
that.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other story. But they used to come to
Wink,
see
wink.
her. Totally. That's a chapter in my book, by the way. So I've seen them. I know them. I'm very familiar with them, and so I see them now coming into the trans space, and so I think this is also causing a problem now. Yeah, I think it's making people think we're like that when we're not like that. We literally have dysphoria.
I don't know how we're ever going to get straight people to understand that. Like, that's my issue with the conversation because they are not us. And I want to repeat you. I love non-binary people. I love transvestites. I love
That's right.
everybody.
Yep.
But now, what made me come around to the way that you use the nomenclature
Mhm.
was the fact that in Florida, for example, they put a law into place that barred 80% of transgender adults from having their medication. Did that affect anybody but the transsexuals? And
That's
now they're
right.
banning adult healthcare or trying to in
That's right.
multiple states, including Tennessee and
Yep.
Missouri and places
Yep.
like that. And that's affecting us. We have different political interests. I think that
That's right.
it's really, really hard to get people to understand that we are fundamentally different than
Mhm.
people who are AGP or non-binary. And I can understand why people would lump us into the same category, but
Mhm.
it's harmful, and I really do not know how to educate people in a way that's nuanced and doesn't hurt everybody in the process. I really don't know.
You hit it right on the head. Look, we're losing our medical space.
Yeah,
Adults are losing.
yeah,
And what I told you before, I said it. I saw it, Nalea. I saw it. The minute we bring children into the picture, now they think we're perverts and weirdos and we're transitioning children. And if you stand back and take yourself out of the trans community, though we know
yeah.
that that's not our intention, and look in, it looks like that. It actually looks like we're freaky weirdos who are taking kids and we're all pedos, and it just looks like that because of some of the people who have latched on to us. And when you bring kids into it, so I said it, we're going to lose all of our adult space because of the kid thing, and here it comes. Here it comes.
That's very legitimate. But I think my response to that problem is some of your response. But I
Okay.
think we need to get more aggressive in exposing who is actually attacking the children. It's happening more
That's right.
often in schools, in churches. Most people, I think it's like 8 out of 10, people who are
Yes.
attacking children are
Yes.
straight men. So there's
Yes.
a transgender woman I follow on TikTok that's in Florida, and she's an older lady that will sit there and she will every week go over who was in the news for attacking children for real. And it's always a straight man or a religious man or a
Always.
conservative man. I
Always.
don't know if backing up from the kids thing, I understand why you would want to do it. And I also have that impulse as well. But I'm like, it's all bullshit. We're not doing that to children. We're not doing that to children. So
Amen.
by and large, and sometimes, I think that if one person in our community missteps, it makes the rest of us look back. That's
That's
not
right.
fair. We need
It's
to
not.
attack smarter. I don't want to shrink down and not be strategic in getting what we want.
And they just,
Yeah,
but I'm always honest, right? I'm always honest to everybody, especially when I'm adopting a kid now, and I'm like, now it's not a problem. They're like, oh wow, that's awesome, you're trans, and I'm like, whoa, things have changed, right?
So
But
when you say that, do you mean like you're in the process of adopting
yes,
another kid right now?
yes,
Oh,
yes.
we got to talk about that at some point too,
Oh
because
yeah,
I'm
for
all
sure.
up in there.
It's a thing. I'm 61, and people are like, "Are you going to adopt at 61?" I'm like, you know what? F off. I'm not old.
Yeah,
Like people are like, "Whoa, you're 61." I'm like, dude, look at me.
yeah,
Like I'm going to be the stay at home dad because my wife's career is just skyrocketing. So I'm all about being
get
the
it,
stay at
girl.
home. Next thing you know, there'll be the baby here with on our next interview.
Congratulations.
Oh,
Good
thank
for
you,
you.
friend. No, I'm super excited about it. So yeah, I mean, I do really think that the anti-trans laws are coming down hard because some of the fools in our community have just made people think we're all that way, right? So instead of them looking, oh, why do you think I keep myself present, friend? I don't need to do this. You know that. I built
Yeah,
an
yeah,
empire. I have an
yeah,
empire. Honestly, I have a great life. I have everything I've ever needed. I've been lucky enough to build businesses. I don't have to do this. I could easily, but I need to do this because I care about you. And I also care about the young people who really do need to transition. But now we're having people transition who should never be transitioning and taking those spaces from actual real trans. What about all the young girls who took their breasts off and now are like, I'm not trans? Those could have gone to actual real young people who have dysphoria. And
yeah,
you understand my point there? That's because we have loosey goosey, uh, not even laws. Just anyone
yeah,
can be trans. Anyone.
yeah. I think as a community, we need to maybe work on some guidelines and discuss them and have
Yes.
dissenting voices. But what I can't accept are the people who are coming down and trying to bring that stuff from a religious standpoint.
I
I'm
know.
like, okay,
I agree.
I might think that there's an imaginary woman inside of my head. You think that there's an imaginary man in the sky that's telling everybody what to do and that we shouldn't exist. No. you know?
That's right. I mean, come on. We have to exist. That's why also 31 years, there's not a lot of people like me, especially
Yeah.
trans men. Not a lot. And it's why it's important. And you being a young trans woman, your presence is extremely important because you're very well spoken, you know your shit. And, that's why don't we have more representation from people like you? Why do we only have
Yeah.
representation? Now, I know you said that about Dylan. That's fine. But to me, Dylan is also one of those sort of clowny, making fun. And that's why people don't necessarily take us seriously, because those are the trans people that are put on pedestals, right? Jeffrey Marsh, her, all of them. What is making people look at us in a really, and not me and you.
I love Dylan. I think Dylan is a lot of
Right.
fun. I don't know her, but and I do think
Yeah.
she's good representation in some ways. But Jeff Marsh, yeah, I struggle with that one. I'm like, some of those videos where you're talking directly to children, like I don't think he's doing anything malicious, but I'm like, yeah, optics
They
matter. They do
matter.
matter.
They do
They do
matter.
matter. And
100%.
more of us need to step forward and try
Yeah.
to make a platform. I think that's the antidote to this, to see more diversity in transgender
Yes.
people, and good
Yes.
representation, I think is going to help us all.
It's going to help us all. And instead of the community being so insular and also so they're like sort of picking, right? This is
Yeah.
the person. Now, Dylan, I don't know Dylan. Like, I don't really care about Dylan, right? I just don't. I look at Dylan as an influencer on some
Yeah.
level. And that's how I just look at it. I don't think that I've never seen that person ever say anything political. I don't think they have any of that's not their space. Their space is to be jumping around and having fun. Go for it. Whatever you need to do, my friend. That's the new world. Social media
Yeah.
and influencers. That's how it works. But why is Dylan going to the White House and representing us when Dylan transitioned 1 week ago or 1 year ago and doesn't necessarily have the experience somebody like you and I have? Why would they bring Dylan to the White House?
Yeah, I think Laverne Cox should be the president of all the transgender women. She's amazing. And when
Of
she
course.
was in the forefront of transgender issues, we were getting rights, we were getting TV shows, we
That's
were
right.
getting more access, and we need to be
That's
strategic
right.
about that stuff.
That's
So
right.
I totally agree with you. I mean, no diss to Dylan, get your
No.
coins. I'm happy for you.
Yep.
But I think that, when the world pays attention to people like you or
Yep.
Laverne Cox, Janet Mock, it
Yes.
really humanizes us to a lot of people. And we were doing very good at the PR game for a couple of years,
That's
and then we
right.
got real bad.
And then we got sidetracked, TikTok.
We got
Not even
bad.
kidding.
Yeah.
No, I'm friends with all of those women, and they're amazing and they're beautiful, and they've done shit ton of work for this community. And if you notice, they sort of took a back seat. And
Yeah.
because I think they also see things they're not happy with, and they're transsexual. I think they also identify as transsexual women. So
Yeah.
they want to look like women. They want to be a woman. They want to walk the world as a woman. They don't want people to see them as a trans person. And that's the new thing I see. I think a lot of people identify as trans. You see the difference? I don't identify as trans. I identify as a male, and I wanted to, what we used to call a sex change, right? I wanted to
Right.
transition to live my life male, not to be trans. And so I think what's happening now is there's a newer generation of people that are taking this on as an identity and not necessarily as a medical condition.
I agree. It is if I were a child, I could see why that could be used as something to be like, I'm special.
Yes.
And I can see the perspective of like, that's fine, be special, explore,
Yes.
whatever, but we need to pump our brakes before we do anything crazy. So I am in favor of medical gatekeeping in some
Right.
capacity, but I think that should
Right.
be done by medical associations. I don't want
Yes.
anybody religious driving it because I just don't trust their
But
intentions.
that's with anything, right?
Yeah.
Religion is your own personal choice. It is not
Yeah.
something that we have to take on, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
have to be a Christian. I don't have to be a Muslim. I don't have to be anything I don't want to be, right? So it should
Exactly.
be. So you're right. I agree. This is one of the problems, I think, is that we brought children transitioning to the forefront of our whole trans space. Trans kids are kids. I'm like, what? You don't understand. People outside of us are seeing that we're transitioning children, and it makes people really, and also it should be a very private space. You know, what about when these kids, what about, look at me and you, we walk the world as men and women, we don't walk the world so much as trans. I
Yeah.
just speaking for you, but what about when this kid gets older and then his whole face is plastered over the internet by his parents? Yeah, I have a trans kid, and then they just want to be a normal kid, but now
Yeah.
they're a trans kid and everyone knows who they are from TikTok, from the parents.
Yeah. I don't think we should put that sort of stuff on a pedestal. It's extremely hard and it can lead people to bullying. But where I
Totally.
disagree with you, I
Mhm.
don't think we're focusing on children. I think the people who are trying to attack us are focusing on children to make us look bad. I think they're
Well,
doing it
sure.
intentionally.
Well, they
So,
are. They are.
yeah.
100% they are. But we're giving them the ammunition. You understand what
A
I'm
lot of
saying?
people are not helping is I will agree with that. A lot of people are
They're
not
not.
helping.
They're
I
not.
always try to when I'm talking about this issue, I always make it very clear. I don't give a raspatootie if a transgender child ever transitions again. I don't care. I'm not around kids. I don't
Yeah.
want to be around kids, et cetera,
Okay.
et cetera.
Mhm.
My point in doing all of this is
Mhm.
I want families to have choice with their
Sure.
children
That's
and
right.
safety and guidance with their doctors and psychiatrists. It's
Mhm.
really a freedom of expression and our ability to manifest ourselves. It's really about that. It's not
That's right.
about I care about kids. I really don't.
No, no, I agree. I agree with you. Every parent should have the opportunity to do what they need to do. I'm very much about parental rights. But
Yeah.
so then I want to know how you feel about this idea that the state can take your child away from you if you don't transition them.
I don't like that idea. I think that there's a few states that have some laws that I find very iffy. I think California being one of
Oh
them.
God, I'm here.
So yeah, so I want to be careful with that. I really think that if we talk about this issue in terms of parents' rights, that's going to
Yes,
create the best outcomes. And
that's right.
I think that parents should be in the know when it comes to their transgender children,
Mhm.
and the state should not be able to take your child away. I mean, we got to protect the family for sure.
Wow, I'm big on family. Thank you for saying that. I do think
Yeah.
some of the stuff that comes out of our community creeps me out. Like, oh, stay, get away from your parents. They don't understand you. What? You can't say that to a kid. Also, schools here in California can like literally transition your child without telling the parents. So they have one name at school, Tommy, and their name is Susie at home. And then they're like totally walking. That's also confusing to a child. That is, and then teaching the child not to tell their parents that they're doing this at school. That's teaching children how to lie to their parents.
I can't get behind a lot of the stuff that
What?
California does, but I also don't think California is reflective. Like the crazy
No,
shit that
yeah.
happens in California, don't take that stuff and then be like, okay, well, people in Ohio need to do this too. I'm like, California needs to be treated like an alien
Oh
planet. I
God,
love California, but it does.
it's a
It's
mess.
different.
No, it's a
Yeah.
mess here. I'll be honest. You know, I'm a liberal. I'm an actual liberal. I really am. I'm
Yeah.
not a conservative.
Yeah.
I'm not Republican. Contrary to what people believe. Oh, you're a what do they call me? You right wing. I'm like, what? I'm an actual
Never.
liberal.
I never got that impression from you. And I think that's crazy. And it's funny. A lot of people, I went on Brad Palumbo's show. I like him. He's
Oh, I
so
love
nice.
Brad. Yeah, I love Brad.
He's great. He like branded me as a liberal, and I was like, damn, I haven't heard that about myself in a long time. Because if you go on TikTok, they
Totally.
are calling me a total Republican. I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't care about labels.
But you, I mean, you have such really much more liberal things than I think even myself. That's great. It's because you're saying things they don't like what they're hearing, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a shutdown. It's like calling you a bootlicker or whatever. They pick
yeah.
me. They call me pick me all the time. Blah blah blah. I'm like, wow, really? I mean, I'm not in junior high school, people. Like, aren't you an adult calling me a pick me? Like, this is so absurd.
I call people bootliggers and pick me's too, but you would never be on that list. I was like, he was fighting for us when it was real hard. So
Yeah, I
I would
appreciate that.
never, yeah, I would never, I don't like when people disrespect you, regardless of how you feel.
That's
You could be, I come from an old school type of family, so you could be a lot crazier and I would still respect you, but you're totally great. So
right. No, because we have to show this is so important. My God, thank you for stepping up to the plate because maybe this is going to make some more trans people say, okay, I want to have a conversation with Buck or even with you,
yeah.
right? Like we need to have, we should create like a round table with all of us. But it's hard because people don't want to, you seem to be more willing to have the conversation. I think some people get very mad and then they immediately get shut down and they can't continue the conversation.
Well, you can't have a debate with somebody like that, and it's not fun. And it gets all the
That's
clicks
right.
on social media and stuff like that. But
That's
I
right.
would love to do a roundtable where we're discussing stuff like this. I don't want to walk away from people I respect and feel like I've injured them in any sort of
Right on.
capacity. And that's
Right on.
really what my values are about, and that's what your
Yeah,
values are about
that's
too. And
right.
it's not about putting on a show. We're doing our advocacy in our own way, but I want
Yes.
to be respectful of the people around me to the extent that I can.
Well, that's why you will be up there and you will be something if you're not already, and you will get across the message to people in the world. And so you're coming from this side, I'm coming from this side, we're going to meet in the middle. That's how I look at these kinds of things. You can say all the things you need to say, but our ultimate goal, I'm pretty sure our ultimate goal is to help trans people get into a
Yeah.
space to live a beautiful life like we do. And that's
Yeah.
always been my ultimate goal. All the work I've done, all of it. And for me, though, it's always been about people who can make these choices as adults. I'll be honest, I do not think a young person can necessarily understand the long term. Again, I have 31 years of this. It hasn't been easy, and it isn't easy. And there's times where you are like, fuck, man. I have to wake up every day and see this body. Like, I just wanted to be a man. Like,
Yeah.
why, this sucks.
Yeah. And I think to your point, like I'm not gonna die on the kid hill. I'm nowhere close to that. I think it's one of the
Yeah,
things that I'm passionate about it. I want to talk
sure,
about it. I think it's an important conversation, but
sure.
it's really about the liberation of people to be able to manifest themselves and really live their best life without discrimination. We all want the same
That's
thing. We
right.
just disagree on which method we're gonna take to get there.
That's right. There's a beautiful point you just made. We all want the same thing. It's just different methods of getting there. But we're not going to get there while we're hating on each other, right? We're not going to get
Yeah.
there. I've never, in my years of being this way, have ever seen the trans community be so hateful towards each other. I've never. I'm not kidding. Ever. And I do think it's a younger generation, like we were talking about earlier, that just think they can come in and say these things. And, the fact that they say you don't need gender dysphoria to be trans is very hurtful. I'll be honest
Yeah.
to you. It hurts my feelings because I'm like, no, actually you do. And actually,
Yeah.
that's where I told you the difference between somebody like us who is medicalized. And then I don't know if they ever call you true scum, but they call me true scum. What?
Yeah, I
What is
know.
that?
Yeah.
What is
Well,
that?
see,
No,
it's
really,
all
what is
fun
it?
and games until our medicine is getting taken away. So,
That's
again,
right.
like I didn't ever like call any transgender person true scum, but you know, 2, 3, 4 years ago, when I was in my non-binary kind of phase,
Sure.
I also felt like I was like, well, why is there such gatekeeping of being trans? Now that medication is getting taken away, I'm like, oh,
Uh,
and that's what people like you knew the entire time. So that's
totally.
like I learned, and hopefully we can teach people, and that's what I want to do with my platform. I'm talking about what they're doing to transgender adults in multiple states. And this is
That's right.
kind of what we've been talking about the entire time.
Oh my God, you cannot take our medicine away. It will actually kill us, and it's not okay. We are adults. We can do whatever we want. That's
Yeah.
what being an adult is. So the minute they start touching our medicine, I will not tolerate that. I need it. So do you.
Yeah.
And don't you dare make me go back underground, because I had to do underground early on
Oh, yeah.
because I couldn't get testosterone. I would get a prescription from my doctor, go to the pharmacy. The pharmacy would be like, "What do you need this for?" I'm like, "What?" They're like, "No, I'm not giving it to you." Oh, they wouldn't give me my testosterone because the guy behind the counter was a Christian or whatever, and he was not okay with a woman taking testosterone. So that's what I
I
dealt with.
think the powers that be that are really there's a lot of moderate people that have concern for children, but the powers
Yes.
that be that are really coming for transgender people, what drives me crazy about them is that they legislate us out of existence and then pretend that we've never existed in the first
Oh
place. So that's what
God,
they're doing again. They're
I
getting
know.
rid of the, children, adults, whatever. And then
Yeah,
in 10, 20 years, when people are too scared to be visibly trans, they'll be like, what trans people? There aren't gay people here. There aren't trans
that's right.
people here. It's a complete farce. And it
That's
really
right.
upsets me.
It's upsetting. It should
Yeah.
upset you. Should piss you the fuck off. I'm mad. We cannot let this happen. And so I'm telling you that I do blame part of the community for this. It's like, fuck, man. We fought. The elders before me, we fought to get to a space where you could actually use insurance. Do you know
Yeah.
what a gift that is?
I
It's a
know.
gift.
That's a
And
gift.
these young people don't even understand the gift. I
They don't
didn't
get
get
it.
insurance. Everything you see
Yeah.
here has been out of pocket, worked 3 jobs, saved to get my top surgery. I mean, I could go on and on. I don't want it to sound like I want you to pat me on the back. I'm just telling you.
No, I will pat you on the back. That's big. That's what your generation did. You were a big part
Yes.
of that. I will pat you on the back for that. That's really People don't understand that, but I
No.
get it. I work in insurance. And guess what? That's what they are going to attack. That's
Yes,
exactly what is really
that's right.
bothering me.
That's right.
That's really
They're going to
bothering me.
take it away from you. They're going to take it
Yeah,
away. You're not going to get your top surgery paid for. You're not going to get your hormones paid for. You're not going to be okay as a trans person because everyone's going to they're going to literally call this a farce. They're going to call it a farce. They're going to say that you are choosing to be trans because these kids are now self IDing. So you see how that's hurting us? We're not choosing this. This is
yeah.
literally who we are. We're suffering. And for us not to suffer, we need the medicine. But those kids who are self IDing and saying, I'm trans, and then 2 years later going, oops, I made a mistake, you don't think that's killing us?
Yeah, and I where I have a lot of agreement with you, I think that I place the blame on all of the stuff that's happening
Yeah.
on the people on the right. I really do, but it's
Okay.
not like we don't take any sort of ownership, and that bothers me too.
That's right.
We have to take some sort of ownership
Thank you.
over the way that we present ourselves, the
Thank
way
you.
the spokespeople that we choose, and I think a lot of the
Yes.
community wants to take 0%, and that does not work for me.
No, thank you for saying that. I worked in the pornography business for many years. I don't
Yeah.
anymore. But that being said, oh God, it's like
Thank you for
having
your service, by the way.
right on. So, but I have to it's like gum on the bottom of your shoe. It's like it won't come off. And I'm like, what? People use it all the time against me, even people in the community. I'm like, what? That was an adult space. I create adult entertainment, right? Like, what are you talking about? So I guess my points being is they're going to find any way and every way for them to point fingers at us that we're perverts, that we're weirdos, that we're doing, you know what I mean? Like, this is sick. Like, so that's the problem and why we can't just have one form of people sort of representing. I hate that word so much. Us
I
and
know.
putting us. I do. I just hate it because I don't want anybody to feel if they represent me. They do not. But I think one voice or one type of voice is being it's being amplified.
We need trans excellence to be out
Well,
there as well.
brilliant,
We get
brilliant,
a lot of
brilliant.
people who are um, talking about our struggles, and there's a place for that. But where
That's
are the
right.
transgender girls doing big things? There's a lot of them. We got to advertise them a little bit more because that's what will connect people to
That's
transgender
right.
people.
No, 100%. Like when Laverne was out there, and even
What a good
Caitlyn Jenner,
example.
whatever you feel about her, there's
Yeah.
people that have been in the forefront of putting themselves out there on it and really showing the struggle. And that's why I keep telling you that there's some people in this community that have infiltrated us who are not like me and you, and who are more fetishizing. When a trans woman starts saying I have my period and I have period cramps and that is insane. That must really freak you out.
It's weird. It is weird. And I make fun of people like that too. I'm like, stop saying that. That's so like
It's
that's
not right.
crazy.
It's
Yeah, it's weird.
crazy. So you don't think now
Yeah.
everyone's like, oh, they're just a bunch of fucking wingnut crazy
Of
people?
course.
Yeah, that's right. Totally. It's like me
Yeah.
saying, oh, I'm shooting sperm out of my vagina. What? They would actually have to lock me.
Yeah, and that's why, like, as pro-trans as I am, I can't help myself from making fun of some of the stuff. I think we have to, as
You
elders,
have to. That's
we have
right.
to make fun. We have to put people in their place, and we got to utilize,
That's right.
however we can teach people, we have to do that too.
That's
And
right.
I think it's important for us to, how do you do that on the internet? How do you do that as a personality on the
Yeah.
internet? I think
Yeah.
we have to be critical in public sometimes as well.
Well, building our platforms and sharing our
Yeah.
platforms and coming together as people who don't agree on everything but agree for the bigger picture. And I think
Yeah.
that's really where you and I stand, for the bigger picture of making sure that people who are transsexual really do have the means and way to get to this space and not struggle, right? I don't want anybody to struggle. I want them to have a beautiful, awesome life if there really are trans people. But we've had a lot of people getting hurt who shouldn't have ever been pushed into this space, right? Because I think gatekeeping, which is not a bad word, by the way, gatekeeping is not a bad word. It's an actual really important word. But I think a lot of people in the community were like, gatekeeping, I can just be trans. And then that just opened the floodgates. I've interviewed over 100 detransitioners.
Wow. Yeah, I noticed that there were a lot on your page.
Yeah, for a reason.
Yeah.
Because I want a young
Wow.
person to see that, and I want them to say, "You won't get your breasts back," because again, it's all mostly young girls, and I'm like, "You will
Yeah.
never get your breasts back. You will if you did a they're doing hysterectomies on 16-year-old girls. Like what?
Yeah.
You think a
I don't
16-year-old
like that
girl can make
idea.
that choice not to have a baby? Like, no. What about when she's 25 and she's like, oops, I decided I wanted to have babies? Not anymore.
That happens. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a shit show, friend. But you're awesome. I think thank you so much for spending time with me here today and willing to have I don't even think we really have that many different opinions.
No, I didn't think we would. I watched a lot of your content today. I'm like, yeah, there aren't that
There's
many differences here. So,
not.
but I will say you are a legend. This is a bucket list moment for me.
Oh,
So
you're
I
sweet.
cannot believe it's happening. And I'm so thankful that you exist and I appreciate the work that you
Thank
do.
you. Oh, you're a beautiful human, my friend. Oh, we're friends now. We're literally friends. I'm gonna send you
We're
my
friends.
number,
Yeah.
and then when you come
Okay.
to LA, we'll totally hang out. Or I go to Arizona too. Are you more Phoenix area?
Yeah. Phoenix area. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. I have a
Yeah.
lot of friends there. I should connect you with. So with that, thank you, Nalea. I very much. Do you want to say anything before we leave? Maybe you have something you want to just say out there.
Yeah, I think that as a community, we can disagree and we could have a conversation
Yeah.
and we could find our common ground and we could still do what's best for us with that common ground. We need to be strategic. The infighting doesn't have a place in strategy, and we need to focus on strategy right now. So, everybody who's watching, please think about that.
Oh, you're lovely. You're a lovely human. You are. You have a good heart. You really do. And I think that you only want the best for us out there. And so thank you for really doing this evening. It means a lot to me. It does. And also, I want to let you know I really like connecting with the younger generation because it's important. I also get other ideas. I'm always willing to
Yeah.
change my mind. I am. I'm not
Yeah.
hard lined in my thought process. It's how I grow to be this person by always sort of changing my mind or seeing things. So with that, everybody, please leave beautiful comments. She's awesome. Follow her. You have a channel, right?
Yeah, it's transgender insurance on YouTube, and then it's Tranalytics on TikTok and
I'll put it all in the
Instagram.
description because
Thank
I'm
you.
like, is that TR? I'm like, how do you spell that? So I'll leave all her information. You guys can reach out to her if you want, and we'll leave her some beautiful comments and follow her channel and let's help raise her
Awesome.
up as well. And this way we create a more loving, more respectful community for all of us in the world. So I'll see you guys on the live on Wednesday, and thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you all so much.